Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Lau with Kanchan Crafts, and thank you so much for joining me in this video today. I will be talking about the 17 ink question, and I will be on vacation this weekend, so I will not be able to record the wet versus dry ink video that I wanted to share with you guys. I have done a lot of research and experimenting, so I will have a really good video for you guys. Hopefully it is good and you guys will really find it helpful once I have that uploaded in about the next 2 weeks or so. But for this weekend, I am going to be on vacation, and I decided to just answer some questions about the 17 ink challenge that has been going around. Saenz and Maria have done this, and I thought it was really fun to just answer these questions quickly for you guys for a video. So yeah, if you guys enjoy talks like this about fountain pens and inks, remember to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you have not been subscribed yet. So without further ado, let's get started on the questions. Number one is, what is your first memorable ink? And I just have my phone here with the questions. So what is your most memorable ink? The very first ink that was memorable to me was Pelikan Edelstein Apatite. So I have that right here, and I bought it from Goulet Pens. And I first started buying stuff from Goulet Pens anyways, and this one was one of the inks that I decided I wanted because it's a blue turquoisey teal ink. I am not disappointed at all. This ink is just so good. It's a beautiful turquoise color, and depending on your paper it will dry down to a teal, or it will stay a turquoise on different papers. So it's really cool, and it's also really well flowing. It is apparently a dry ink, but it hasn't done a bad job in most of my pens. I have not tried them in my very dry sailors yet, so I will, do that someday and see if it really is truly dry. But Pelikan Edelstein inks are dry so that they can work well in Pelikan pens, which are super wet. I think that they're well behaving anyways in any other pen. So that was question one. So question two is, what is your favorite ink bottle design, and which bottle is your favorite to use? So I have a lot of ink bottles that I love, especially the glass ones. I do like a really fancy luxury looking ink bottle. So Montblanc inks are one of my favorite bottles to use, and this is a tiny 30 ml one, and it's still the same shape. I don't like the shoe style bottle from Montblanc, and that's usually the regular line of inks. These square bottles, and here is Montblanc Red Fox, one of my favorite, like autumny, like red, orange, brown ink. It's super nice, and their ink bottles are just this gorgeous, and it kind of has these like ridges, so it's not just like a flat four-sided square bottle, and I just think it's so luxurious. And then of course the Montblanc symbol up there for their logo, or their logo sign is up here. And yeah, so 50 milliliters is a lot of ink, but I think that this bottle shape is minimal enough to capture all of that 50 mils. I love Montblanc bottles, but they're so expensive. I only have these 4, which I'm okay with. The other one is up there, as you can see right there. So that's my turquoise ink, and here is Maya Blue, Emerald Green, and Red Fox. So these 4 are just one of my favorites. And then the other ink bottles I do love, and of course I like the Apatite ink bottles. They are not the Apatite, the Edelstein ink bottles, because they're so solid. They're super heavy, so they're not going to tip over at all. And I really love like the sounds that opening and closing a bottle. Like, who doesn't love that? Yuyake, here's my favorite, one of my favorite inks from Pilot Iroshizuku. Yuyake, let me see here, come on. It's not focusing. Okay, so Yuyake, or Pilot Iroshizuku's inks, have one of the most elegant looking bottles, but it is a much like wider design. So I don't know about like, yeah, I don't know about it tipping over if you accidentally hit the side. So like this side is more narrow, right? And so if you hit from either side, it might tip over. But if you're hitting it from this side, it's not going to tip over. It still has a nice, like, lovely plastic to glass sound that it makes when you open and close. All right, so I think I would say that these are my 3 favorite ink bottle designs because they're sturdy, they're heavy, and they are functional. Unlike Ferris wheel press. So I have it out here for a later question. All right, what's an ink you love or find useful but would not use for everyday writing? There's inks that I love but I wouldn't use every day, and that is Ferris wheel press Open Sea Atrium. This is one of my favorite seafoam green inks. I love the design of the box. I love the inspiration behind the color, and I love gold. So gold shimmers are present in this ink, but it is the driest ink you'll ever find. Because this seafoam green shades a lot and it's very light, it's very dry. But in very, very heavy pooling of this ink, you can see the darker seafoam green color. And I think for painting, this one would be better. It's just absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous, gorgeous color. Just a very dry flow. I barely got any shimmers from my thick medium Leonardo pen, and I think that's because it's not a very wet flowing pen, and so with a dry ink, it tells me, you know, even with a medium nib, that it wasn't coming out so well, that this is a super, super dry ink. Not functional at all. Which is sad because I love that ink so much. Okay, let's see. How do you discover new inks? There's a lot of inks that come out on Instagram, but also I just go to Vaness.com. I love Vaness so much. They have the best selection of inks. I don't know if they're the cheapest right now because they had to raise their prices. I noticed that the prices went up a lot. I looked at my purchases from 2 years ago, and one of the inks was $4 for 4 milliliters. Now it's $5.25 for 4 milliliters. So like, we all hate inflation. And Vanessa has to deal with inflation too, so like, I get it. But it's one of the best places to find ink samples. You can also get ink samples from Yoseka Stationery, Goulet Pens. So like, those 3 are probably the 3 places I would go to for ink samples. Do you use inks for anything other than writing? So that's question number 5. I mainly just write with my inks. I haven't used it to paint besides the painting I made for my October Currently Inked, which was really interesting, and I'm not great at painting. I don't know like the main basics of painting. So when I used those inks to paint, it was like I had huge blotches of an ink on a tiny little leaf that I wanted to paint. I think that the colors do look gorgeous when you use to paint because there's so many. Like 50 milliliters is a lot, or for Ferris wheel presses inks it's 38 milliliters, and that I won't go through that at all in the next 5 years. Considering how many inks I have, and like you all might have as well. So I think using them to paint, to draw and doodle is a great way to use up some of your inks. And aside from that, just sending samples to friends, like pen pals. Number 6, what's an ink that's worth hoarding? I think Montblanc's Red Fox is definitely worth hoarding if you like this kind of color, but it is so rare now. So I would say hoard an ink that is limited, that you love the color for. Like maybe 2-3 bottles, but you don't need any more than that really. That's gonna last your lifetime. 3 bottles, unless you share them with your friends. And I wouldn't hoard every single limited edition ink. I would just hoard the inks that you absolutely love and that you have written with many, many pages, and you know you're going to be using it. Otherwise, you're hoarding it for not, you're not really hoarding it for a really good reason, besides reselling it in the future, which I don't think is the best reason at all to be hoarding an ink. But there are people that do that. Like the Montblanc inks that I bought, they were so expensive, and that's because some people still had them and their resale value is really high a few years later. Okay, number 7. How do you choose which inks which ink goes into a pen? Do you have to match? Do you always use the same ink in a particular pen? I'll answer this question in further depth in my wet versus dry ink. But for me, I typically do match my ink's color to my pen. So if I have a teal bluish pen, I will ink it up with a green teal blue ink. Sometimes if I feel the inspiration, I may ink a teal blue pen with maybe purple. I don't know if I would put an orange, but like if it's too much of an opposite color, I wouldn't do it. I like inks to kind of complement the pen if I'm not doing a matchy color. So for example, my Kilk Celestial is black and white, so that's really easy to find a color to complement it. And so I chose a darker blue periwinkle to match my white and black aesthetic of my Kilk, and it looks really great. And then I saw, I think Tanya from the Atlas Discord, she suggested like a burgundy ink for that Kilk, and it is great. I did have a swatch of that ink with the pen on my Instagram, and I thought, you know what, this maroon looks really great, or burgundy looks great in this pen too. So I think that with a more neutral pen, almost any color will work. So it'll mainly be a color that I like, that will complement the pen really well. Do you always use the same ink in a particular pen? I do not. So I know that I have found, like for some of my pens, I have found the perfect ink for them, but I will still try new inks in those pens. For my Aurora Volterra, this pen is neutral color, and I put in Alpha Tauros in here by Colorverse, and it is a beautiful terracotta orangey brown ink, and it works perfectly in that pen. It flows nicely, no hard starts, no skipping, nothing like that. And so it is the perfect ink pairing and the perfect ink color, but I also will be changing that ink up at some point once I'm done using the ink, or once I'm done with that color. Because some pens are piston fillers, and sometimes you can't see how much ink is in there, so you might have more ink than you can use up. Whether I use it all up, or if I'm tired of that color, that's when I'll know to switch the pen and ink. So I don't typically just have one pen inked up all the time with a specific ink. I like to experiment and change the inks. All right, number 9 is there a popular ink that's just not for you? What underhyped ink would you like to see more people try? So this one's a very easy, the first question is easy. I don't like Pilot Iroshizuku Konpeki. Everyone raves about it, everyone loves it. Colors like Pilot Blue and Konpeki, I don't really care for. I lean more towards like a turquoise, so like a blue that has a little more green, or a green that has a little bit of blue in it. And then I do enjoy all shades of green. So there's that in terms of like a basic color, like a basic green. I would rather do a basic green than a basic blue. What underhyped ink would you like to see more people try? So I don't know if Kobe Nagasawa ink is underhyped, but I hype it all the time. It's a great ink line. It's great flow in about 80 to 90% of the inks. There will be like 1 or 2 inks that are really dry, like this one is Kobe Hime Ajisai, which is hydrangea, and it's a lovely purplish pink ink with a little bit of blue haloing undertone, but it's mostly purple pink. And because it shades into these multiple different colors, and it's a lighter ink, it's a bit drier. I didn't notice that because I put it in my very wet Leonardo pen with an ebonite feed and gold nib, so I didn't notice that it was dry. But I do know that based on its properties, it is dry. And my friend Monica from Mshan Plans, do check her channel out too. She inked it up in her regular Leonardo Memento Zero with a plastic feed, and I think her nib is either medium or fine, and she felt it was so dry. And you know, you can tell when an ink is dry from your pen, so that's like the best way to tell. And so she was like, I don't know if I like this pen. Is it the pen, or is the ink dry? And I said, I believe that ink is very dry because it's a chroma shading ink. And so based on that, I will say that it's the ink and not your pen. So try another ink. And she did, and she loved the pen and the ink combo. So based on that experience with her, I can tell that this ink is slightly on the dry side. So, but yeah, that was a tangent. But again, 90% of Kobe's inks are very wet. Either that or they're very, very well flowing, like average flowing to wet, but they all flow really well except for those really drier, lighter Kobe inks. So I would like to see more people using Kobe inks. I think that people, the reason people don't use it as much is just because it's an expensive brand. Like Sailor's expensive to begin with, and Kobe is like the luxury brand of Sailor that is only sold by Kobe Nagasawa in Japan, and Vaness is, I think Vaness and Yoseka are the only two places that sell those two inks. All right, do you use ink samples? This is question number 8. If so, is it your goal to find an ink bottle or just to get a smaller amount of ink to use? I do use ink samples, and I think from now on I'm only going to be getting ink samples. I don't want to get any more bottles because I feel like I won't ever find, the time to use all of that up within the next 5 years. Like, I'll still have all this. But like, I don't want to sell ink bottles. They're very expensive to ship. I would rather give samples out to friends. Like, it's like $5 to $8 to ship 6-7 samples of inks. Whereas like if I were to sell 2 ink bottles, like the shipping will go to like $12-15. It's crazy. Shipping is based on weight for the most part. So, and then one of my plans for ink samples is that if I use up a whole sample of ink, like a whole 4 milliliters, and if I love it very, very much, then I'll consider buying the bottle. If I don't love it too much, but I still feel like, ooh, I still want more of this, then I'll just buy another 4 milliliter sample. That's kind of how my goal for ink samples and bottles are. Number 10, what do you do with an unused ink when you clean a pen? So let's say I get tired of my Alpha Tauros ink in my Aurora Volterra. I will just throw the ink away because I still have like maybe 3 milliliters or 2 milliliters of the Alpha Tauros ink sample, and if I'm done with that ink in this pen, I'm not going to ink that ink up anytime soon because I don't like to use the same ink so soon because I have so many samples to sample through. So I want to try every other ink first. Like, I know I love Alpha Toro, so I know I'm going to love it in another pen, so there's not really a reason for me to try it right away in another pen. So when I decide to ink up inks in a pen, I either wanted to see if this pen can handle this ink, or if this ink is new to me and I want to see how this ink behaves in my pens. If I already know Alpha Tauros inks, the Alpha Tauros ink is well behaving in my Aurora, I don't need to ink it up in any other pen. I already know its properties, and I like it. So number 11, what is your most unique ink you've used or seen? Or actually, before I answer that question, so going back to number 10, what do you do with any unused ink when you clean out a pen? I strongly suggest that you do not put your ink that was in your pen back into the ink bottle or even the ink sample, because that would be almost cross-contaminating. Like, you've used your ink up, it may have dried a little bit inside your pen. It's better to just throw it away. If you think about it, ink bottles are really expensive, ink samples are really expensive, but they last so long that the value of the inks are actually pretty great. So you're not wasting money by any means if if you want to feel frugal, and sometimes I do feel that way too, like I don't want to waste any inks, but at the end of the day, it's just like 1 milliliter really is the most you're probably going to throw out. It's better to throw that out than to contaminate your full 50 milliliter bottle. So just pro tip, and I'm sure you either know this already or other people have told you, but yeah, don't put used ink into your full bottle of ink. Number 11, what is the most unique ink you've used or seen? I think one of the most unique ink I have seen, like the chroma shading inks are what really amaze me, especially chroma shading inks that go down a totally different color from what you expected. One of the inks I bought from Vanessa was supposed to be like a dusty purple ink, and it went down like a brown. And I was like, okay, but I do like that brown. But then as it dried, it just became that purple, but even paler than the swatch online. And I'm like, this is not the ink I expected. Did I put it in the purple or did I put it in the pink? Let's see. Anyways, so the ink is called Murasaki, or it's Tatsuya's Ume Murasaki ink. So if you know that ink, then you know what I mean. It is such an interesting color. Like, it's a pale, dusty violet ink, but when it goes down wet, it's like a brown, and then it dries slowly into this very gray, dusty purple. And I think that that was so interesting because I tend to like inks that are simple and colorful with a good amount of shading, but like not too much. And I don't like too much sheen because it's it masks and covers up the actual color. Inks that just change its color but has no like crazy sheen or anything like that is really interesting to me, I think. So Tatsuya Ume Murasaki, if you don't know that ink, try it out. Okay, number 12. How do you catalog, swatch, track, and store your inks? So as you saw, I was looking through my binder here. So I have a Pokemon Evolution binder because it's got all the elements and all the colors, basically. So in here I have little like Pokemon card sleeves, and I just put the Wearing Ghoul swatch cards that I swatched in here, and I organized them all by color because that's how I remember things. I think I might also want to organize it by brands at one point. So maybe if I have another binder, I'll organize it by brand. So I'll have to re-swatch everything. But organizing it by color is really pretty for me to look at, and it's also helpful as well, just to say like, oh, I want a purple ink. Then I just go over to the purple section. And so, and then for me, organizing by colors is a little tricky sometimes because when you get a new ink, you have to reorganize everything, or I have to reorganize everything. And then I also have to determine, is this kind of purple a purple gray, a purple pink, or purple blue? And then where in the lineup do I put it? So sometimes like it doesn't, my order of color doesn't make sense, but I do place similar colors together. So and then here's my grays, and then I like to leave like a little space right here so you can see my grays ended right here, and there's nothing on this side. So I didn't continue with the browns. I left space in case I had more grays to put in here. That way I don't have to constantly reorganize everything. So that's how I organize and swatch my inks. I love it. Okay. What is your favorite ink color or color family? Oh, that's easy actually. I don't even need to think. So as you can see here, teals, greens are my favorite. So these 4 are teals and greens. And then I also really, really like these terracotta red, brown, orange colors. I think they're just so beautiful, very legible. That's my favorite color tree or color family. Number 14. What ink-related tool or accessory can you not live without? So I have the Kakimori brass nib. It's essential for me to dip and do my writing samples on my swatch cards. But I do not use the broader tip of my Kakimori nib to do the swatch. I like to use Q-tips to do the swatches because Q-tips show the shading better. I think that Kakimori nibs, they hold a lot of ink, and they also let ink onto the page really, really easily and really well. So that doesn't show me the property of the flowing property of the ink as well as a Q-tip would. And so usually if I were to use this Kakimori nib to do the large swatch, it's all going to be one single tone. I won't see too much shading going on, or like I won't see layers of the ink color, because it pulls so much of that ink that I'll just see the top layer. So I need the Kakimori nib for the writing, and I also need Q-tips, because it's really important for me to see the shading qualities of inks. I know that a few of you guys might not enjoy or like to use Q-tips to do your ink swatches, and that's fine. I would like to find another way to be able to cleanly do ink swatches and like in a controlled way without having to use Q-tips. When I do my Q-tip swatching, I have a very controlled way of doing them. Okay, so the next question is, have you ever mixed inks or used shimmer additives? I have mixed some inks, but I have not used shimmer additives. I'm hesitant to use shimmer additives only because I don't really like to use shimmer inks in a lot of my pens. There are very specific pens that I will use shimmer inks in. It has to be fine or like a wet fine or a medium nib. The pen has to be able to be easily cleaned, and I don't want it to be an internal piston filling pen or a vacuum if I can't take it apart. Because shimmers are going to be stuck inside, and I don't even know if there's going to be any in there left. So the pen has to be a cartridge converter. It has to be a steel nib. Only some gold nibs I will allow shimmer inks in, but that is my one rule that I try to live by, is to not ink up any gold nib with shimmers. Yeah, I know there's really no like solid scientific reason why I shouldn't put shimmers in a gold nib, but for my personal reasons, I don't want my gold nibs to be ruined by shimmers. I will probably not try shimmer additives anytime soon, but maybe in the future. But I have mixed inks. I've mixed Iroshizuku inks because 50 milliliter bottles, I'm never gonna go through them. So I have mixed some blue, greens, and grays to recreate Kyono Oto's Hisoku, which is such a gorgeous tealy gray blue ink. And so I thought that maybe a gray, green, and a blue from Pilot Iroshizuku can recreate that color, and I did recreate it, but it felt a little dry, which I found was so interesting because Pilot Iroshizuku inks, they're all wet. No matter which color you choose, they're all wet flowing inks, and so I am wondering why that specific blend was a little dry. Maybe I just didn't test it well enough yet with other pens, so I should do that and report back. But Hisoku is a super dry ink. I don't like to use White Lightning because the one time I messed up, my Hisoku sample flowed so much. It wasn't even controlled writing anymore. But that was an error on my part. But also, I think that Vanessa could have done a much better job at explaining specifically that you need not even a drop, but you need just a touch of the White Lightning into a 4 milliliter sample, because they only give you 4 milliliter samples, and if you're going to test it on their 4 milliliter sample, 1 drop is way too much. So I know that they say 1 drop per 10 milliliters, but I think that the safest bet, like I have seen a lot of you guys discuss this, and one of my friend that I talk with, he has used, he just dipped it very little in, like the back of the back of a Kakimori nib, dip it into the White Lightning, and then just touched it, like barely touched it into the ink, and then just swirl it, and that was enough to make that ink a little wetter. That's why I created and mixed inks, is to create a wetter version of a dry ink. And I've done that with my Pilot inks. What is your favorite ink delivery system? This is not an easy one to answer, mainly because I don't have one answer for it. So I do like cartridge converters because I can easily clean them. Pelican's piston filler is also my favorite because it's so easy to clean. 2 twists and water's in and out. Or I can just pop off screw off the nib unit and then just clean flush the inside with water, and then also flush the nib unit either with water or into an ultrasonic cleaner, and it's so easy. I also think that personally for me, vacuum fillers, when they actually work, not like my Visconti that I had to send out to Visconti to fix, but vacuum fillers I think are so quick and easy to fill, and they're very easy to clean as well. But I know that vacuum fillers may need to be cleaned like 20 times. Like pull up, plunge down 20 times before the inside of the barrel becomes somewhat clean. So I know that because of those reasons, vacuums might be annoying for some people, but I think in terms of like having to twist and turn the cartridge converters to get ink and to clean it, that vacuum fillers are so easy. But yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy all of them really. But I do think that the quickest one to fill with ink and clean would be cartridge converters. What ink are you excited about right now? That's question number 17. I'm not really someone that looks forward to inks unless I see it. There is one ink that I'm really excited for, and I did not know how it looked like until I saw it in a video. It's a video from Japan, and so somebody from Japan has this ink because Japan probably has already distributed it to people in Japan, and it's not here yet in America or retailers. And it is the Sailor Shikiori Tsubame, Tsubame. I will link the video down in my description box, but if you love dusty pinks that have brown undertones, this one is a little bit more pink than it is brown, but it's got a lot of brown in it. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. In my December currently inked, I had inked up my Sailor pen with endurillium ink, and I typically don't do that. Based on that experience, I found out that the endurillium ink stains. I was really sad and upset to see that it stained. So it stained my converter. So my clear converter has pink burgundy stains on it, and then the nib on the inscription with the MF on the side is also stained. But other than that, it didn't stain it too badly. Like the nib wasn't stained too badly, but the converter is stained. So I need to get some maybe Goulet Flush to clean that out. That ink color I loved so much, but it's a staining ink, and I don't want a staining ink. I told myself I want that kind of a dusty brown pink in my Sailor pens. So I know that Sailor 273 is a very brown, like a pale brown pink color, but it's a little too brown, I think. So Yu Tsubame from Sailor Shikiori is coming out, and it was made to pair with the Yu Tsubame Sailor Progress Slim Pen. And I'm not buying any more slim pens, but that ink is not out yet. Like no retailers have shown the ink color yet, but this video showed how beautiful it looks, and I'm just like, that is it. That is the replacement for the endurillium Contiga ink, or Cotinga ink, and it's gonna behave well in my Sailor pens. So super excited for that ink to come out, and I am going to be using it in all of my pink purple Sailor pens. And then another ink that I'm excited to get, and one of my friends on Instagram, their name is Mars, and they are sending me samples of Kobe inks, and Kobe came up with some new inks recently, and they're the chocolate series. I just love it so much because I love brown pinks and the mixture of those colors. And the one is called strawberry milk, the other is chocolate milk, and then I think another like dark chocolate. Gorgeous gorgeous brown and pink inks, and I'm so excited to try those inks. I know they're gonna flow well. The only bad flowing ink I've used from Kobe is Goshiyama Ochre, and I would think that Hime Ajisai or Hydrangea is also a bit of a slow flowing ink. So aside from those two, the rest of the Kobe inks that I have used are really great flowing inks. And so seeing how well saturated these inks that Mars will be sending to me have looked, I'm excited to use them. All right, so that is it for this video. I know this is a very long video. So if you have made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you for watching my videos and just, you know, taking a little bit of your time out of Sunday to talk with me about my inks. And so yeah, this is my ink stationery section aisle, and here I have my fountain pens that are in reserve that are not being used. So I am just really happy with how my little section looks and just happy to share my ink experiences and with you guys. So thank you so much, and just remember to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed yet for more videos like this, and do hit the bell button so that whenever a video comes up you will be notified and see it on your homepage. But otherwise, I try to post videos every Sunday, and if I don't, I'll let you know ahead of time. So again, thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.